And joining me now by phone is Washington Post reporter and CBS contributor Ed O'Keefe. Ed, we just heard Sean Spicer refuse to say whether the president would try to stop former FBI Director James Comey from testifying. How likely do you think that is to happen?
If you look at reports by various outlets, it suggests it's not likely that he will allow Comey to move forward and testify and not invoke executive privilege. That would be consistent with the president's previous statements that he'd like to get this all out there and allow this to be investigated and discussed publicly. Even if he doesn't invoke executive privilege, I would think, as is consistent with how he's comported himself in moments like this in the past, that the president will certainly try to say something about it, either via Twitter or in person, or perhaps just try to step on the news with some other kind of an announcement, using the presidential bully pulpit as only he can to perhaps try to divert attention to something else. But for now, if you're someone who's interested in this, you should be canceling your Thursday morning plans and tuning in to whatever it is Comey plans to tell the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, so many people looking forward to seeing exactly what he has to say. We're also hearing more, Ed, about Robert Mueller's special investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. We know Paul Manafort's among the targets. What are you hearing about this?
That the investigation continues and is proceeding apace. The fact that Manafort is even subject to this and that we've learned it is telling. This was believed to be an investigation that we wouldn't hear much about, but suppose it's no surprise that details are becoming available. And we also know that Mueller and Director Comey did speak this past week about what exactly he could discuss, the former director, in his testimony to the Senate. So there very well could be moments in that testimony later this week or next week where Comey gets asked something and he says, look, on advice of the special counsel or my own personal attorneys, I don't want to get into that aspect of this situation because it's subject to the investigation that's ongoing. But we know that Mueller has set up offices. He is continuing to investigate this and is expected to look into a lot of the same things that the various congressional committees are looking into. And that means talking to all sorts of associates of the president and others who would have been in the government around this time last year.
Meanwhile, Ed, on another front, the president's decision to pull out of the Paris Agreement, the climate change deal. Republicans appear split on this. Many local leaders we're hearing coming forward rebelling. How big of an issue do you think this will play in the 2018 campaign?
Hard to say, Rena, because these types of domestic issues prop up and everyone then says, oh, they're going to be a big deal in next year's election, and then they aren't. I think of gun control, for example. Remember when, after the Newtown shootings and the shooting of Gabrielle Giffords, everyone was convinced that guns would suddenly become a central issue, and they didn't. Similarly, immigration, and when that failed in Congress a few years ago, and then it didn't become a big issue. Environmental issues, we'll see. Perhaps there'll be some incident, God forbid, that happens, a natural disaster of some kind, that compels people to sort of rehash this issue and put the pressure on Republicans again to explain why they stood with the president and his decision to back off of this. But it's hard to know. Democrats have used this as a rallying cry in the past for their base to some great effect. It certainly becomes an issue, I think, for candidates as they perhaps feel in primaries. But I'd be surprised to see this become a real central issue in congressional campaigns at some point next year.
It's interesting. There's so many questions that still arise over whether Trump believes that climate change is a hoax. He's often said that he thinks it is. I want to play for you something that just came in over the weekend here. It's what UN Ambassador Nikki Haley had to say about it on Face the Nation.
Does the president believe in climate change, Ambassador?
He believes the climate is changing, and he believes pollutants are part of that equation. And I know that he is absolutely intent on making sure that we have clean air, clean water, that he makes sure that we're doing everything we can to keep America's moral compass in the world when it comes to the environment. We've done that in the past. We'll do it in the future. It's what the U.S. does. It's what we'll continue to do.
That seems to be a difference from what the president has said before. He had said, I do not believe in climate change, and he has called it a hoax. So you're saying that's not true. He believes in man-made climate change.
The president believes the climate is changing, and he does know that pollutants are a part of that equation.
Just to clear up a little of the confusion, so he believes that human activity, which creates those pollutants, leads to climate change.
I mean, John, I just gave you the answer. I mean, that's what he believes, and so that's as clear as I know to give it. Okay. You know, we can all weigh this out, but at the end of the day, watch what the president does. What he is doing is making sure that we have jobs for American citizens, but also making sure that we have a clean environment.
So there's often a disconnect between the president and his own administration sometimes. How much stock do you put in the ambassador's comments there?
Well, this is an administration that likes to play, he likes to tap dance with semantics, because she certainly did that there. Yeah. With John. And, you know, for some people, that'll settle it. For others, that'll cast even more doubt. But it is telling that the White House understood that after several days of questions to Press Secretary Sean Spicer, to the EPA administrator, that went unanswered about this question, they understood that the administration official put out to discuss News of the Week with Sunday shows had to have an answer, and that appears to be the answer. The climate is changing. Well, the climate changes in essence every day, right? The temperatures go up and down. But he believes that man-made factors are part of the equation. That to me is a signal that, yeah, he gets it. He's just not going to use the preferred semantics of those that aren't happy with the decision he made to pull out of the agreement. And remember, I think we're going to see private companies, state governments, city governments try to abide by the principles of the Paris Agreement, absent of whatever the federal government did. So, in essence, some of this will be happening anyway. It just won't be coming with cues from the Trump administration.
And it's hard to believe it's already fundraising season for elections. We know Vice President Mike Pence is at the annual Roast and Ride event today. That's in Boone, Iowa. He's also already set up his own PAC. What can you tell us about that?
Well, fundraising season is every day of the week.
That's true. Very good point.
Especially for members of Congress. Yeah, the Roast and Ride is Senator Joni Ernst's excuse to bring out-of-state Republicans into the Hawkeye State to meet with Iowa Republicans. Let's remember they always play an outsized role in presidential elections. Tim Scott of South Carolina, the Republican senator, is there, and the vice president as well. Notable that he is there, and I think part of the reason he's been sent is there's a great story today by our colleague Tom Beaumont of the Associated Press, who lives and works in Des Moines and is tasked with tracking this stuff closely, that notes that a lot of Iowa conservatives, especially Christian conservatives who make up an outsized part of the caucus electorate when it comes time for presidential picking, are not necessarily pleased right now with the way that things are going with the president. Either concern about the fact that there is yet to be a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, or concern with other aspects of his work. To send Mike Pence, who is in many ways the biggest ally or the largest accomplishment for the Christian conservative movement in this country, in that he is now vice president, to this rally and to the state to sort of buck up support and defend what the president has done, I think is notable. And yeah, may have something to do with the vice president's own political future. As you pointed out, he has established a PAC, which is unprecedented for a sitting vice president. It signals he wants to be involved in next year's midterm elections and maybe beyond, in a way that perhaps the president can't be, given his own issues with wide swaths of the electorate. Pence, however, remains very popular and respected among conservative Republicans in this country, and very well could be a draw in critical House, Senate, and gubernatorial races next year.
Ed O'Keefe, thank you for joining us, Ed.
Anytime, Rita. Take care.